up, everyone? Mondays with Vish is back. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Vish Kumaran. He's on summer break because he's a student, but he's also got a summer job because he's a student and grown man at the same time. So we're switching around the time a little bit. We're thinking between 2, 3-ish on Mondays will probably be the time, until your schedule gets locked down, right? Through the summer.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Right.
So write that down in your planner. Since Vish was here last, pretty much the number one topic is Julio Jones. It won't go away. Julio was did he know he was on television when he said that he's not going to the Cowboys and he's leaving the Falcons? Anyway, he said he's not going to the Cowboys and he's leaving the Falcons. The Niners still remain a top destination in terms of what people expect. So what do you think, man? Should they do it? Will they do it? Should they do it? Will they do it?
In terms of should they do it, I think it's a complicated question to answer. So on one hand, right, like trading for a future Hall of Famer, there's never anything bad about that. Julio Jones is still a top 3 or 4 player at his position. He's still an elite player, and I think he's still got 2 or 3 really great seasons left in him. So trading for Julio Jones in theory can't be a bad move because he's Julio frickin' Jones. But if you're talking from the 49ers perspective and you start breaking down the ins and outs and the details of whether they should, in my opinion, they shouldn't make this move. The first thing first is kind of my first reason is kind of like a non-logical fan reason, but I'm frustrated, man. This regime has drafted 5 receivers in the first 5 rounds. You're telling me in 2022, here we are 4 years into Kyle Shanahan's, 4 receivers drafted in the first 3 rounds, and we're talking about trading for Julio Jones. That's frustrating to me. That is frustrating because, like, at this point, you would expect, you have Ayuk, between Ayuk, Debo, Hurd, Trent Taylor, and Dante Pettis, you have 3 out of 5 guys that could be legit 3 receivers. So, in my opinion, like from a fan's perspective, that's just annoying because like you just wish you always rather have the draft pick hit than trade for the superstar. That's just how you are as a fan. Now, from an actual analytical and logical perspective, so the money with Julio Jones actually year 1, it's not bad, right? Post June 1st, especially, I think it's $11 million. 49ers could fit that within their cap right now. They'd be good to go. Where I think the Julio Jones contract becomes complicated is in 2022. And the Niners need a lot of flexibility in 2022, right? You're going to unload $25 million because Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be off the books in 2022, and you're going to have the rookie contract to play with. But the Niners are also going to have to build their entire secondary from scratch in 2022 because Jimmy Ward will be on his last year of his contract. Emmanuel Mosley will be on his last year of his contract. Jason Verrett will be a free agent. Kwaski Tart will be a free agent. And K'Wan Williams will be a free agent. Now, you hope Ambry Thomas or Diamador Lamore could be one of those guys that you look at as prospective starters, but 3rd-round pick, 5th-round pick corners aren't guys that you just hand the job to and say you're the starter going into their second year. So when you have to rebuild their secondary, you need that flexibility to play with. Here's what happens when you bring in Julio Jones, right? Trent Williams' cap hit in 2021 he has a dead cap if they release him of $40 million, but his cap hit is just $18 million. In 2022, it goes to 14. In 2023, it goes to $26 million. So now Trent Williams' contract becomes an impediment because that's a large contract. Fred Warner's contract will not be structured nicely. It's going to be a front-loaded deal. The first year will probably be signing bonus, minimizing the cap hit for 2022. But 2023, 2024, Fred Warner's cap hit is going to be north of $20 million because he's the best linebacker in the NFL, and he deserves to be paid as such. Bobby Wagner currently, who I think is the highest paid linebacker in the NFL, I want to say, his current cap hit over the next 2 years is $17 million and $20 million. I'm expecting Fred Warner's contract will be around there. Then you go to Eric Armstead's deal. The next 3 years, Eric Armstead has a cap hit north of $20 million. That's another cap hit. George Kittle, you go to George Kittle's deal. The next 2 years, George Kittle has cap hits of $16 million, and $18 million. You throw in Julio Jones, whose cap hits, if the 49ers got him, would be $20 million, $23 million, or excuse me, $23 million, $19 million, $11 million, $19 million, $19 million. That's a lot of dough you're spending on very few number of players. And that's where I always look, because here's my thing. Like, I'm going to get into the football perspective here in a minute, but just from a money perspective, to me, I don't know, maybe I'm old school and conservative, even though I'm 21 years old. But I always think that depth over stars when it comes to the NFL. I think it's better to have a 53-man roster with 40 good players than to have the Dallas Cowboys situation of 12 really excellent players, and then everybody else you can't do anything with. And if you're a 49ers fan, you especially should be valuing that depth, because it seems like our best players can't have – there's a black cat running around this franchise in terms of injuries, and our best players miss 1, 2, or 3 games a season, and that's really frustrating. But when you have Ross Dwelley, George Kittle can miss a couple games, and you can maybe win one of the two. And
certainly,
when you have Raheem Mostert behind Matt Breida, you're okay. And that's really important to consider, right? Because the other thing is that all these undrafted free agents, I mean, Emmanuel Mosley got his new deal, but the Ross Dwelleys, the Daniel Brunskills, all these kind of guys that have been key-ish contributors over the last 2 years, not star players, but solid players that every 49ers fan recognizes, those kinds of guys become unrestricted free agents now. And that changes it, because they could get that small deal in the market that's really not a lot of money, but the Niners can't afford it because they have to pay XYZ while rebuilding their secondary. So that's where trading for Julio Jones, to me, from a monetary perspective, it's difficult for the 49ers in terms of how they structure their team and how they're building their team over the next few years.
And then there's the third factor, which is get him in terms of trade capital, players, picks. What does it take? That's the third thing.
I'd rather trade players in this case than picks.
Right, but I mean, there's the money factor, but then there's also what you have. You're not just getting him on the market, so that has to be considered as well. The Niners have no first-round pick next year. They have a comp third-round pick. Yeah. So that means if they traded their second, they would have 0 picks in the top 100 next year. That's where they'd stand with a comp. Maybe they'd have pick 104 or something like that.
And think about it this way. Let's say Verrett has an incredible season. Niners can't re-sign him because they have Julio Jones, right? Ambry Thomas, let's just say for the sake of it, I'm not predicting this will happen, but for the sake of discussion, let's say that he's a year away next year. Like, he's a pretty good player, but they're still waiting on him to be their legitimate starter.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a starting cornerback if you miss in free agency, and if you don't have the money in free agency outside of the top 100 in the draft. It's very rare that you find that. You usually get star cornerbacks and starting cornerbacks in the first round. And then here's the other aspect, and that's the football aspect. Grant, what's been the weakness of this team the last 4 years? The biggest weakness of this team. They're a poor drop-back passing
Pass protection. Just drop-back passing in general.
It starts in general. The drop-back in general. The quarterback is not great at the drop-back pass game. I would say Shanahan, of all his strengths as a play caller, the drop-back pass game is probably his weakest element, even though
his philosophy is honestly to avoid it. He's like, I want to be a play-action guy, a run, because you can't be everything, right? You can't be everything. He wants some people. We're going to prioritize drop back passing. Or we're going to prioritize run and play action. That's
he
his philosophy.
Prioritize his run game and his play action passing.
That's his philosophy.
That's right. Philosophically, he's not Sean Payton or Josh McDaniels
or Bill Walsh.
Really right.
Bill Walsh. Yeah.
So that's the weakness of this team, right? And you talk about it from perspective like even Trey Lance, right? He could be this excellent drop back passer 2 years from now. At this current moment, I don't think adding Julio Jones to this team automatically makes this a Super Bowl team because of the names on there, because Trey Lance didn't do a lot of drop back passing in college. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see it. And
it was a lot of play action.
Right. It was a lot of play action. And he didn't have any games where you just dropped him back 45 times and said, Lance, go win us the game.
That's what Mahomes did at Texas Tech.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what Mahomes did at Texas Tech.
Right. And that's why Mahomes is the best drop back passer.
Exactly.
In the NFL.
Yeah, he did it. Yeah.
And Lance, I'm not saying Lance couldn't be that guy. That's not the point. Right.
He's
now,
not that now. He's not that now.
He's not a drop back, a pure drop back passer. And he doesn't have to be in this offense. But
plus the right tackle is built for run, play action, not drop back. I mean, that's clear.
So is the left guard.
So is the left guard. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And Aaron Banks, the right guard, I really like him. He might fit that mold too. Alex Mack is 37. Trent Williams is the only guy that's pretty much elite across the board.
Right.
And most offensive linemen technically do have one thing they're better at, run or pass. So it's not like, let's just jump on Laken Tomlinson. And I think everybody's jumped on McGlinchey enough this season. It's just he's a better run blocker than pass protector. And philosophically for the Niners, that makes sense because they want to run the football first. So then when you add Julio to this, and you're going to throw the ball 25 to 30 times, and you just paid a fullback a lot of money, so you want to be a 21 personnel offense. So that means 2 receivers are going to be on the field, whether that's Julio and Ayuk or Julio and Debo or Debo and Ayuk. One of those guys is sitting. You're only throwing the ball 25 to 30 times. Like, what are you going to do there? Like, how are you going to distribute these targets? Like, if you're going to utilize George Kittle fully, he can't get 4 targets a game and just be a blocker. He has to get 8 to 9, 10 targets a game. This is an elite player. Same with Ayuk. And
Debo needs 8 to 10 touches.
We've seen what happens when you get Debo 10-plus touches. He wins you games by himself.
So what's left over for Julio? I'm not saying he's the number 3 receiver, but like the whole reason I thought the Niners were right to let Emmanuel Sanders go is like he was effective. They threw him maybe 4 passes a game. What's the point? Yeah, it's a run first team.
Right.
I know they're obvious. They're different.
Julio Jones, right?
Of course.
Like, if you bring in Julio Jones, a top 3 receiver in the NFL, and you're only throwing the ball 30 times, you're wasting the talent of some of these
and the
players.
Money and the capital you gave to give up. All right, let's switch gears and stay with Julio, but look at it from a different perspective. And guys, we're gonna stick with this Julio Jones discussion for a while. So if you have any questions or you want to direct the conversation in a particular way, feel free. But I want to do it this way first. We talked about this a minute ago. What the Niners would have to give up for Julio. Now, Mike Florio wrote some today on Pro Football Talk, which broke it down in an interesting way. Either a team gives up a lot of money. Well, either you ask the Falcons to pay for some of his contract, in which case you'd be giving up a high draft pick, or you eat that entire contract and give up like a low pick. So it could go either way. Can you explain that? Because I don't think I was speaking English right there.
Yeah. What Florio was basically saying is either the Falcons get this really high pick, a premium quality pick, like a first round pick, and they eat a lot of Julio Jones' contract, or they get the cap space and give up Julio Jones' contract, but then only get like a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Julio Jones. Which, come on, like a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Julio Jones. What are we talking about here?
So in a sense, Atlanta's like paying for the pick. If you want a 2nd, there's a price. You want a 3rd, there's a price.
Right. And here's the detail to me that makes and the reason why I think Atlanta won't go the cap space route. I don't understand what they're going to get from reducing their cap hit this year. They're not going to be able to make a move for anybody else or anything like that. So they're going to be just looking to get the premium pick, because it's about trying to build something around Matt Ryan for the future, right? Like, I think in an ideal world, in my opinion, it makes no sense for Atlanta to trade Julio Jones. You just restructured Matt Ryan. You drafted Kyle Pitts. That team is way better.
Piss off Matt Ryan, the entire team and the fan base. It's not going to be a popular move. I mean, are you kidding? They're going to look terrible.
Yeah, you could have the best offense in the NFL next year if you had Julio Jones.
Exactly. But if they want the pick and not the money, that means they're going to be helping out with his contract. So the biggest concern you had in the previous segment was what it would cost, considering all the other people who were expensive.
I never had a problem with the 2021 cost. I think the 2021 cost post June 1st is very manageable. But they're not going to pay for 2022 and 2023. Why would they pay for 2022, 2023? Who does that?
Good point. Oh, well. Well, okay, so let's say the Niners – here's the thing. So we agree it's not the smart move. It's not the prudent move. That's the word I want to use. It's not the prudent move. But Kyle Shanahan is a lot of things. Not always prudent. Sometimes he'll make a 33-year-old left tackle the highest paid offensive lineman of all time. Not a bad move, but is it also the prudent move? Not sure. Let's say Kyle Shanahan has a special affinity for Julio Jones. I mean, he coached him. He might consider him the best wide receiver since Jerry Rice. And he's like, you know what, 32? That's no problem. He's going to be great till he's 37. Maybe Kyle feels that way about him. And he said, let's make a non-prudent move and go crazy, balls to the wall. In which case, we both don't like trading that 2nd round pick. Is there a player that you would dangle that you think is worth comparable to that?
If you're going receiver for receiver, he's my favorite player in the NFL, but Debo would be the guy that I would.
It seems like a natural trade, right? I mean, from Atlanta's perspective, you get a young player with potential, and from the Niners' perspective, you get Julio freaking Jones.
Right, and there's enough smoke around the fact that apparently the Niners don't want to give Debo a 2nd contract, and they have concerns with Debo's weight and all of that. So, like, from that standpoint, okay, you're only going to have Debo for 2 more years. Why not get Julio for 2 more years? But the one thing I would say, and the reason in terms of like, obviously I'm trading Deebo Samuel for Julio Jones. Like everybody and their grandma would do that. This is Julio freaking Jones. But the one thing I would say is that even though Julio Jones makes life easy for quarterbacks, of course he does all of that, I think Deebo makes life easy for a quarterback more than any other wide receiver in the NFL because he turns negative plays into 20-yard gains, and that really helps your statistics a lot.
Yeah, you basically hand the ball off to Deebo and fancy hands off. He gets the fancy handoffs, the little pitches and pop passes. Yeah, I agree. I would do this though. I would trade Deebo for Julio. I'm sorry. I mean, I have my misgivings about Deebo as well. Even though Julio's about 8 years older than him, I would still do this.
Yeah, I would trade Deebo for Julio too. Heck, I would maybe even consider it with Ayuk, because if you think your window is the next 3 years on Trey Lance's rookie deal, especially because this is an older roster. I mean, Trent Williams is 33, Julio would be 32.
Yeah.
It is. There are some older players here. And the secondary is obviously all kind of veteran, oldish guys. If you think your window is right here in the next 2-3 years, like I love Ayuk. Ayuk was great as a rookie. Julio is basically right now probably better than Ayuk might ever be.
Better.
Like, let's be honest. I know everybody loves Ayuk. I know there were a lot of debates on Twitter. I was on vacation and I was checking Twitter and people were yelling at each other that like Ayuk is better than DK Metcalf and DK Metcalf is overrated. And I was seeing all of this and I was like, all right, I really need to get back to vacation. I need to get back to vacation.
Let's chill. Yeah.
But when push comes down to shove, whether it's Deebo, whether it's Ayuk, like this is Julio Jones. And if it's player for player, no picks, like, the money still is a question mark then, but still, if you're just replacing one of them with Julio Jones and you're saying we're going all in for the next 2 years and we have to make this move, man, I would do it just because, like, again, even right now, I don't know if Brandon Ayuk would be as good as Julio Jones is currently right now. Ever.
True. But here's the thing. Let's come back to your main issue with getting Julio Jones. The money. That's your main issue, right? The money, period. So I think that's legit. And I feel like in order to make that work, you'd have to send back someone who's going to be taking up that money. And so it could be Deebo, although you do have Deebo for 2 more years. 2 more years? 2 more years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cheap. What about Fred Warner?
No, heck
That's too much.
Heck no. Unless they're giving Deion Jones back.
Right. Okay. That's too much. So it would have to be Fred Warner for Julio Jones and Deion Jones. 2 Joneses. Yeah. Double Jones.
I'd do that.
I
don't even know how that money works because Deion.
Who are other people that make a lot of money on the Niners? Armstead. You think Armstead could get Julio?
I don't know if Atlanta wants a player. That's the problem.
Fair. Why would you want 28-year-old Armstead? Why? No, I'll just take the 2nd round pick, please.
Yeah.
Cost control,
and
young.
It's nothing against like Armstead being, because he is a good player. I think he gets a lot more flack. Like, I mean, you criticize him, I think, fairly, but I think fans take your criticisms and go, Armstead's not a good player, blah, blah, blah. No. He's still a good player.
He can be very good. He can be very good. Yes. He really can. Yeah.
But I think the thing is that, like, why would you want if you're like in this kind of weird spot where you're building / rebuilding, like, why would you trade maybe the greatest player in the history of your franchise for just a defensive lineman or whatever? You're better off taking the pick, parlaying it into a couple other picks and seeing what you can
Why would you even trade him for Deebo?
Yeah.
Why would you even do that?
I mean, honestly, why would you? I think that's a great question. Like there's
Deebo has issues.
NFL teams prefer picks because they just want to draft who they want. They don't want somebody else's player.
And you want 4 years of cost control, not 2.
Right.
Yeah. If the Niners want Julio, they're going to have to trade that 2nd round pick and find a way to make it work financially. And honestly, if Julio is here, I don't know that Fred Warner can stay.
No, I think he can stay. I really think he can stay. The problem is what happens to your secondary. Because you have this entire secondary that you need to rebuild.
Right.
Like, what are you going to do, right? The entire point of Trey Lance is that next year when Jimmy Garoppolo is gone, the Niners even after signing Warner, the Niners going to have a ton of money to play with in terms of, like, all of a sudden, Stephon Gilmore is on the market and you signed Stephon Gilmore.
Because remember, people,
Gilmore?
There's going to be no cap space if they have Julio Jones and no picks in the top 100. So how do you get starting DBs? No money, no picks. How do you do it? Now you could
I
trade
don't know.
Debo, Bosa, people. You're gonna have to start trading people. You can't have this team together for that long.
Unless
you can't.
I mean, unless we're talking like the worst case scenario happens and you're somehow able to bring back K'Wan, Verrett, and Tart because they all have like injury riddled seasons. But then if they have injury riddled seasons, do you want to bring them back? So it's like, and if things go right and those three play the way they're capable of, there's no way the Niners can bring them back for 1 year $3 million, 1 year $7 million, and 1 year $2 million. No way.
Yeah. All right, let's answer some questions, some donations. I missed a couple on the live stream, and I felt terrible about it, so I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. My team over yours says, is there honestly such a thing as too many weapons on offense? Example, 2001 Rams, 2006 Colts, last season Bucks.
I think there is. But I think that the common factor that you have with all of those quarterbacks is you have 3 Hall of Fame
quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Kurt Warner,
so like you have Kurt Warner, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. And the identity of all those teams except the Bucks, well, even the Bucks, was just to throw the football down the field. And the identity of the Colts was just to be an 11 personnel and throw the ball with Peyton Manning every other play. And the Rams, yes, they had Marshall Faulk, but they were the greatest show on turf for
Orlando Pace.
They threw the ball down the field. And the identity of the 49ers is not to be a drop back pass team. That's not their team.
No. I feel like you have to choose. You can't be both. You can't be both. And I mean, you'd have to have the greatest offensive lineman in the world to be both. How? You'd have to have 5 first round, 5 top 10 picks.
Pace.
You'd have to have all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. You can't. Unless you just like, the only thing we're going to draft is great offensive lineman. We're just going to, no, you can't do that. So you pick one or the other. And Kyle and his dad have always been like, you know what helps a quarterback the most? A run game and play action. I know it's counterintuitive. You think great quarterback, set him up for a drop back passing game. No, you're just creating a one-dimensional offense. That's their philosophy. It makes sense.
What happens also is that they're able to process the game for the quarterback a lot because they create a lot of wide open windows where all the quarterback has to do is read 1 or 2 people and the guy's open and he throws it. So they make their offense very easy for their quarterbacks to play in. That's why it's called a quarterback friendly offense, because you have a really strong running game and you have a very strong play action pass game that schemes up. There's a lot of schemed up manufactured throws that are wide open for you. The other thing I wanted to mention, is that I still think receiver is a need. I'm not sitting here and saying receiver is not a need. I just don't think the receiver they bring in has to be the caliber of Julio Jones. Like if Sterling Shepard becomes available or Jamison Crowder becomes available or Deshaun Hamilton, who they tried to trade for, those kind of guys that are just good pros that you can come in and they'll catch
like a legit number 3
passes for you in a season and it'll be 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, that type stuff. Well, yeah, heck yeah. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders basically became that for the most part for them, besides a couple very, very big games and critical moments. He was a 4 or 5 catch guy.
I'm just saying I would rather the Niners give Richie James Jr. a real chance to be the number 3 receiver than to sign some 34, 35-year-old like Golden Tate. Give Richie James a chance.
I'm not into the idea of Golden Tate. I think his legs, I don't think he's explosive anymore, in my opinion, at least.
I think Richie James has, if you look at his resume, that's a guy who deserves more playing time. What more would you want him to do? Yeah, he was a 7th round pick, but I think he deserves a few more targets. Same with Dwelly.
The entire point too is that when you get a guy in the 7th round and he shows a little bit of something, like you try and increase his role because like you look good if you draft a guy in the 7th round. Yeah.
And it worked out with Jeff Wilson Jr. I feel like Richie James could be like the next kind of guy like that. Jeff Wilson Jr. gets a shot and all of a sudden 10 touchdowns. Not a great player, but definitely a good player.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I don't know the answer to this. What do you think there would be an added pressure? Like not Julio Jones' personality. Obviously, by all accounts, Julio Jones is just a stand-up civilian. But in terms of the pressure of his presence, do you think that would be bad possibly for Trey Lance? I mean, look at the Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield. My dad used to tell me that Steve Young used to feel a lot of pressure to feed Jerry Rice and get him the ball. And Jerry Rice used to get pissed off because he used to run out of the pocket before waiting for Jerry Rice to get open. And it would hurt Jerry Rice's numbers and all of that. Do you think a young quarterback like Trey Lance, who's obviously going to go through growing pains, even if he's like Patrick Mahomes even had a couple growing pains. Josh Allen had growing pains. Deshaun Watson had growing pains. He's going to have growing pains. Do you think that there would be a pressure on Trey Lance if you brought in Julio Jones, knowing you have Julio Jones, Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo, and you got to get them all the ball and all of that? Do you think that would hinder his development, or do you think that would help?
It's tough. I mean, on one hand, you'd think, well, you give him Julio Jones, he'll be great. He'll be great. And that's the expectation. What if he isn't? What if he's just a rookie who's going through rookie stuff? Now it's like, hey, man, get him the hell out of there. It's like far less patience. And then what if he doesn't win the competition? Jimmy wins it and goes crazy because he has Julio Jones and George Kittle and Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. And now you can't ever get Trey Lance onto the team. I don't know. It's interesting things to consider. I don't know. We got some more questions, though. Rod says, Vish, Grant, only way I trade Debo is if Jesus says Jalen Hurd faith has healed him. Well, I'll see
if his faith is healed, and then you don't need Julio Jones because you have 3 really good receivers then, right?
Yeah. Really, you don't need to spend 18, 19, 20 million a year on a wide receiver to win a Super Bowl. Usually teams that win Super Bowls don't have wide receivers who are that expensive. They don't. Angelic Ambition, great name. Whew. Never mind. I just like it. Anyway, what if we go the DeAndre Hopkins sort of deal? Atlanta needs running backs, trade Raheem and a 4th rounder for Julio.
What do you think?
Trade a running back for Julio Jones? Yeah, I guess I would do that. I love Raheem Mostert, but you got to give up a good player to get a good player.
Okay, here's my thing. Why would Atlanta trade for Raheem Mostert? Like, I'm genuinely wondering that, because he had a good NFC Championship game and Niners fans really love him. Like, what is Raheem? I'm genuinely going to ask this question. Raheem Mostert has this incredible story, and he's looked very good when he's played. Why would any team trade for him, though?
Hold on. You just really minimize him. You just pulled a Rich on Dre Greenlaw right there. Like, that was a drive-by on Raheem Mostert. Let's just hold on. Mostert hasn't shown that he can be a lead back, and he does have durability issues, and he's not that thick. That being said, he always averages 5 yards a carry. Always.
On this offense. In this offense. Like, why? What makes you think, if you're Atlanta, that you just take Raheem Mostert off this offense, a guy who's been on 5 different teams, but he is a home run hitter.
Mike Davis bounced around a while. Sometimes it takes a guy a while to get his body right or whatever. I don't know. I think he's good. I think Mostert's good.
No, he is good. I'm just saying for Atlanta, why would you, I'm not saying this isn't
because it would make the 49ers fans happy.
Yeah, sure. This reminds me
their job isn't to make Falcons fans happy. It's to make Niner fans happy.
This reminds me of during the season, if you remember, like Niners fans at the very start of the season were pro Jimmy. Then week 1 happened, and you used to get these donations that are like, let's just trade Jimmy in a 4th, and that'll get us Stafford, or Jimmy in a 2nd and get Matt Ryan, and stuff like that. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how could you get that with Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. And then the other thing with DeAndre Hopkins, and this is the part of the reason that we're talking about, this is the thing I actually wanted to bring it up when you brought up the Florio. They gave him a new contract. Yeah. Arizona had to give him a new contract that was massive.
Right. That is true.
DeAndre Hopkins makes what, $19 million a season?
Yeah. How's that going for Arizona?
He has a cap hit above $25 million.
How's that going for Arizona? Yeah, exactly. That's true. He's more expensive than Kittle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next question from Tony. He says, if there's a year to trade for Julio, it is definitely this year. Tagged you in a thread on Twitter, Vish, explaining my points. He tagged you, Vish. Did you see it?
Right. No, I didn't. I haven't been on Twitter. I'll check it
out. All right. We would have discussed it, but he's been out of town, man. Thanks, Tony. All right, let's get back to it. So I think we're done with Julio unless there's any more Julio questions.
One more thing on Mostert.
Okay.
Someone said Mostert, like Arthur Smith. Like, yeah, Arthur Smith runs a similar offense, but the run game isn't the exact same. They actually ran a lot more inside zone with Derrick Henry, and Raheem Mostert's an outside zone runner. That's important. That's an important distinction in this.
In my opinion, Raheem Mostert is the best outside zone runner in the league. It's just you really shouldn't get who? Oh, Dalvin Cook. Okay, fair enough. Second best. You shouldn't give him too many carries, but 10 carries a game outside zone. Now he's going to need a good tackle and tight end. He'll need a little blocking, but if you give him a runway, goodbye, dude. I love watching Raheem Mostert.
To me, his value, like for the 49ers, he has incredible value. He's a home run hitter. He's a perfect fit for the offense. All of those things.
Yes.
It doesn't mean he's valuable to other teams.
True.
For the 49ers, he's a really good player. He's good at what he does. He's the only player on this team that can hit the end zone from anywhere. But for the Atlanta Falcons, to give up Julio Jones so you can get Raheem Mostert, that's not what they need.
I do think Raheem Mostert would have some value, though. I mean, like a team like the Chiefs would be great with him. That kind of speed, any team would like that. I mean, he really is the second fastest dude after Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Previous dude said Brunskill, Debo in a second. That's a lot. I don't think you have to give up that much for Debo. I mean, for Julio. I don't think they're going to have to give up that much.
I don't like giving up Brunskill only because having an offensive lineman with that much versatility is a very valuable backup.
Yep, agree. Alex St. L says, are any of the free agent tight ends a good fit for the Niners, or is it Dwelly season? You know what I think.
Dwelly season, obviously.
It's Dwelly season. He's 26.
Channel and say it's not Dwelly season.
You can say whatever, man. What do you really think?
No, I actually think it's Dwelly season. I'm not as much a Ross Dwelly fan as you, but I think he's been a good player for them when he's played. They drafted Charlie Warner, and I was high on Charlie Warner, so I'm going to stay high on Charlie Warner. And like Dwelly's got great hands. I think the bigger problem with Dwelly is that they just don't throw him the ball enough. Whenever they throw him the ball, he does a job. He catches it. Yeah. Thought I would actually be more interested in bringing in another blocking tight end to compete with Charlie Warner, because I honestly didn't see anything from him last year. He didn't play a whole lot, but I was like, I don't know, man. I expected to see him moving people, and I didn't see that. So maybe he'll come in with a bigger body, and he'll be ready to go. But push him, man. Bring in a vet. Can his body get bigger? He's jacked.
He is jacked. I didn't understand what the deal was. I thought he'd be a good blocker, and I didn't see that. I didn't really see anything from him.
He was an unbelievable blocker in college.
Right. And he could become an unbelievable blocker for the 49ers. And if he does, that's a hell of a trio. Because Dwelly's never going to be an unbelievable blocker. He gives good effort. I mean, he cracked Aaron Donald to win that game, but that was like he got like a running start. He was like stealing home from third base. If you just line him up on the line, he's not going to be moving defensive linemen. But he gives good effort.
And the other thing is, you talked about it. One of the things they did at the end of last year with Jeff Wilson is they had this shotgun run game out of 12 personnel where Juszczyk was lined up in line as a tight end. And so
we'll go in those jet sweep blocks. Yep.
I think there will be more of that. Yeah.
Right. It's like instead of kicking out defensive ends or outside linebackers with pulling guards, like do it with Juszczyk, who has a little pre-snap momentum. It was smart. Mike McDaniel was very good. Very good. Can't wait to see what he does with the offense. McGlinchey or Kinlaw in third rounder for Julio. No brainer. Whew. Is Kinlaw worth anything?
Yeah, I think so. I think Kinlaw should be on this team. I think he's important.
How about Kinlaw for Julio then? I mean, I would do that. I don't think anything of Kinlaw. Do it.
Do you value a defensive tackle, a defensive lineman with that much potential against? It's a tough value question because this is a Hall of Famer. And then you have a guy who's could be good.
I like Contavious Street. I like Givens. I like Jones. I like all those. Kerr. They wouldn't miss him. I mean, Kinlaw has potential, but
I like Kerr. But the thing is, Jones is most likely gone after this year. I was even shocked that they brought Jones back because I think Jones is legitimately a good football player in the NFL, like a really good one. So yeah, I was shocked that they brought him back. Maybe I don't know. If
Atlanta calls and say, look, we'll trade Julio Jones, but we have to get a player in return who went to South Carolina, I would say trade Kinlaw, not Debo.
Really?
I would. I'm not impressed with Kinlaw.
I might also, just because you just drafted a young quarterback, and Julio helps that young quarterback more than Kinlaw does.
Kinlaw is a good player. I don't think he's much of a pass rusher, and I think he's going to let you down because that's the expectation. I could be wrong. Good athlete. He moves very well for his size. Just wait on him,
Grant.
He moves very well for his size.
Just wait on him. Because that's the other thing, right? You drafted him 14th overall. Like, come on, it looks bad. How many first-round picks are you going to just do this with or not hit on?
I'm disappointed there won't be. I don't think there's going to be pads and OTAs, so we won't see. Maybe there'll be one-on-ones, but they won't be like the full-blown thing. But keep that in mind. No pads until training camp. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get to see it in training camp. And I think Julio anyway is going to be post-June 1st, so we're going to have to wait 7 days anyway.
Okay, let's move on to Fred Warner. I know it's not as exciting of a topic, but it's just as important, if not more important. Doesn't seem like he's going to get a new contract anytime soon. What do you think's going on here, Vish?
I think they should try and get this done ASAP, like as soon as possible. And it's not for like, oh, because you need to sign Fred Warner. I think that's obvious. Like a monkey could tell you like, hey, 49ers need to sign Fred Warner. Like, yeah, he's pretty good at football. He's the best player. He's the best linebacker in the NFL, in my opinion. He's unbelievable in coverage. He's improved steadily as a tackler. He forces fumbles. He intercepts passes. He's a first-team All-Pro. He's a Pro Bowler. He's a consummate professional, always represents himself well. He checks every box. There's nothing you can say for a reason why he shouldn't be paid. There's no injury concern. There's no concern off the field. There's no concern anywhere. The one reason why I think it needs to get done quickly is because there's a lot of good off-ball linebackers that are about to get paid with him. Roquan Smith, Darius Leonard, Tremaine Edmonds. I mean, Roquan Smith has a second-team All-Pro, and I think he has a Pro Bowl. I know Darius Leonard has a first-team All-Pro, and I know Tremaine Edmonds has a Pro Bowl. So, like,
I've been uninvited to the entire state of South Carolina. What? What did I say, man? Was it about Kinlaw? Was the thing I said about Kinlaw? Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, so the best thing is that obviously the off-ball linebacker market is going to be reset this offseason. The Niners want to make sure that they're the team resetting it, and it's not the Colts with Darius Leonard, and it's not the Bills. Tremaine Edmonds, I think the first three players are just a little better than Tremaine Edmonds, so I think they're going to get paid more than Tremaine Edmonds regardless. But you don't want the Bears to reset it with Roquan Smith either. It just makes the negotiation that much tougher, and that's why, in my opinion, getting the Fred Warner deal done. I mean, prudent seems to be the buzzword of the day. I think it's the most prudent thing for the 49ers to do is as soon as possible. Like, because you could get
today.
Because if you get this deal done, it could be like the Jimmy Garoppolo contract. Do you remember when they got it done in March? People were like, oh my God, they paid that much money for Jimmy Garoppolo. And by June, I think Matt Ryan got extended and a few other guys Kirk Cousins got his fully guaranteed contract and all of that. And people were like, whoa, Garoppolo's already like the fifth highest paid quarterback in the NFL. He was first 2 months ago. Now he's fifth. I think that could happen with Fred Warner too. Like, oh my God, Fred Warner's just got the massive extension. He reset the market, all of that.
Highest paid linebacker of all time.
Right. And then before that, Darius Leonard's the highest paid. Roquan Smith's the highest paid. So that could happen. And I think that if you could do that and have Fred Warner, like you would be able to, I mean, obviously you're going to have to pay him a lot of money and he thoroughly deserves it, but you might be able to, if you get the deal done quicker, you might be able to dictate terms easier because there's a lot of hidden language in contracts that we just don't get access to, but agents know like what's the language is in Darius Leonard's contract, and they'll try to leverage those small things. Because like when deals aren't getting done, I think one of the things that I've kind of learned over the last year is that they're not getting done because Fred Warner wants $28 million and the Niners are offering $18 million. They're usually not getting done because there's small things in the contract. Like instead of him getting, if he's on the roster by January 1st, he gets paid X amount of money. Parag wants it where if he's on the roster by March 1st, he gets paid X amount of money.
Details.
So just small little details like that. Those are the kinds of things that prevent contracts from getting done quickly. And I think that kind of language, if you see it with Darius Leonard and you see it with Roquan Smith, it could hinder it. And Fred Warner showed up for OTAs. He seems like he's going to go through the entire process. Just reward him.
I think that's very interesting that Fred Warner's showing up to OTAs. There's no word about holding out. There's no urgency on his side that, hey, I'm happy, man. I got a contract. I'm here for the team. Seems to me that it's in his interest to just chill. He's got all the cards here. He's got a full house. He's got all the cards. And the Niners have a pressing situation with all these other inside linebackers on the market. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. We got a comment from Jordan saying, would the Niners have more success over the next 5 years if they somehow could trade for Rodgers and Julio, or by keeping the status quo with Jimmy and Lance? I don't think they can get Rodgers and Julio. They don't have picks for everyone, but I think the point is, if they could go mega all in for 1 year with vets, is that a better move than to just stick it out and go brick by brick? I think that's basically what you're asking.
You're going to hate me to say that I'm going to say this, but to me, it's obvious. If you could somehow get Aaron Rodgers and Julio Jones, you're going to be better.
Bird in the hand.
Whichever team has Aaron Rodgers, I'm sorry, is going to be better than the team with Jimmy Garoppolo. And we don't know about Trey Lance, but I think it's fair to say that he might never be as good as Aaron Rodgers, one of the 5 or 6 greatest quarterbacks in NFL history.
That's why if Green Bay
Is that
ever calls
fair
up
to
the
say?
Niners and they're like, hey, you know what? This situation with Aaron Rodgers has gone south. We happen to love Trey Lance. We'll make a trade involving those two. The Niners would have to seriously consider that, even if they love Trey Lance, because it's Aaron Rodgers, dude. I don't care how old he is. I don't.
It's Aaron Rodgers.
It's Aaron Rodgers. Again, you know how good he is. You don't know how good Trey Lance is. End of story. So, yeah. And I put it up on my channel yesterday. Me and Chardal, I don't know if you know who Chardal is, but he calls in the weekends. And he wanted to talk about, it's all right. He wanted to talk about trading for Rodgers, and I made it a video. And a lot of Niner fans were like, no. Just like last year when he floated trading Jimmy for Rodgers. It's like, guys, come on.
I get it. Because it's the same thing I talked about with Julio Jones. No, I totally get it. You want the quarterback that you drafted, you developed, or you traded for, and you developed to be the guy that does great, not the guy that you just go get. Like, how much better would it be for Tampa? How much better would fans feel? I mean, the Super Bowl is a Super Bowl, but a Super Bowl would be sweeter, with Jameis Winston, who you drafted first overall and built the whole thing up with him, than Tom Brady just coming over here and winning it for you. I mean, we're talking about a minuscule, maybe a 10% difference in terms of happiness, because if your team's winning the Super Bowl, you're ecstatic no matter what. But if you're thinking about this logically, whichever team has Aaron Rodgers is just going to be better. I'm sorry. Look at the Packers teams that go to the playoffs every single year, and look at the Niners. Look at the defense that the Niners would give him. This is not close.
See, out here in the West Coast, we're so far away from the Midwest. We don't we see the highlights of Aaron Rodgers, but we don't really experience it like we did when he was at Cal. And I think sometimes it takes someone who's out there to be like, guys, you don't get it. You don't get it.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody play the position so perfectly than Aaron Rodgers between 2011 to 2014 or 2015. The throws he would make on a daily basis, my God.
All right, I want to stick with Fred Warner. I'll follow up to the Fred Warner discussion, and I already have it on the bottom. Will the Niners trade Fred Warner? It's that's a crazy question. Why are you saying that?
I think it is.
Well, I don't think they're going to trade Fred Warner. I mean, I'm not going to let him. But it's sort of in their personality. I mean, they like to extend people's contracts who are inexperienced or have maybe 1 or 2 good years or have some injuries. When it comes to negotiating with players who hold all the cards, who are just the best at their position, now they got it done with George Kittle, but they didn't get it done with DeForest Buckner. And it's my question, is Parag going to balk at paying an off-ball linebacker $20 million a year?
No. Because he did it with Patrick Willis, did it with Navarro Bowman.
He didn't pay him $20 million, but he reset the market for him.
Right, with both of them. And Bowman, actually, they had enough faith with him. I think after he came back from his ACL, before his Achilles, I want to say they re-upped him again and made him the highest paid linebacker. This was before he had the all-pro season after his ACL and Tom Sula's first year. Correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory's a little hazy there, and I'm trying to forget the Tom Sula, Chip Kelly stuff. But no, I'm sorry. Yeah. The Tom Sula, right? Am I right? They re-upped him before, or
yes, yeah, I believe so. Yeah, believe so.
Okay,
so.
but yeah. So I don't think they'll balk. And then the other thing is the one thing with DeForest Buckner is that this regime didn't draft him, so they didn't have the same ties to him. I think that they have to Fred Warner. They drafted Fred Warner. You draft people like Fred Warner so he could become Fred Warner, and then you could pay him as the highest paid player. This is why teams draft players.
Agreed. I'm not saying
trade
Fred Warner. I'm not saying trade Fred Warner.
So
but I'm just saying
I don't.
Parag makes me nervous. It seems like he might, but I hear you on that. Only thing is, I was looking at a guy on 538, Josh Hermsmeyer on Twitter. He was saying, don't pay for linebackers. Kind of like how, a few years ago it was running backs don't matter. That was the hashtag. Now it's linebackers don't matter because so much of their value is tied up in run defense. But that's not Fred Warner.
No. No, and I think I want to go read that article, but I do think a lot of linebackers get massively, massively overrated through a span of a season and all of that, and we think they're good, and then when they're bad, you see stuff like this. See, this linebacker isn't that bad. No, you overrated Jalen Smith. You said Jalen Smith was the best linebacker in the NFL when he never was. That's the problem. You don't watch somebody like Demario Davis, wow, the Saints defense is so good because of their pass rush. No, Demario Davis has been one of the best linebackers in the NFL the last 5 years. Same thing with Levante David, Eric Kendricks. There's not, I would say, that many of those guys, and those guys are good for 8-9 years at a time. It's not like, you just overrate a guy and 1 year he's really good and then you don't know. So to me, this is you cannot trade Fred Warner. If you trade, if they trade Fred Warner,
I'm not gonna let it happen. I'm not gonna let it happen.
Question my fandom in this.
Yeah, you can't let this happen. Really it would be about as popular as drafting Mac Jones.
I think it would be worse.
Ooh, you hear that, Kyle? Don't get crazy. All right. No, someone said that Matt Mayoko said that. I don't know if it's true, but that they're going to wait till after June because of cap reasons. That would make sense. Does that seem to?
That makes sense to me. I'm just saying, try and get it done before Darius Leonard and Roquan Smith.
God forbid. I don't want to even put. I hope nothing happens to him at OTAs before, because you sometimes hear stuff like that. It's cruel, Football, those practices are serious, man. People get hurt. Jalen Hurts got hurt, so just take it easy on Fred Warner, man.
That's why, in my opinion, the holding in rather than holding out, I always think that's the best strategy. Where you show up, so you're not losing out on any money by not showing up, and then you just do whatever drills you think you need. And if there's a hitting drill, you don't think you need to do it, you think it might endanger yourself, don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah, but be there. All right, last topic. This is interesting. Peter King put out his preseason power rankings, and he's always pretty partial, a lot of P's right there, to the 49ers. This year he has them at number 5. I believe it was Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Cleveland, and the 49ers. What do you think of that, Bish?
I mean, for an off-season's power rankings, I think it's pretty fair. Like, you look at the rosters in the NFL, and Niners have a top 5 roster. Like, because they were able to bring back Jaquiski Tartt and Jason Verrett and all those guys we didn't think they could re-sign, you look at the roster top to bottom, and you can't really say a weakness. Ooh, number 3 receiver. That's probably
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, because they even addressed their offensive line in the draft, right?
No, they don't. There's 3 things with the Niners. We all know what they are. 3 things: the injuries, the quarterback situation, and the loss of Saleh, which no one ever talks about nationally.
Right. No. Ever. That is a big deal. That is actually a big deal. I agree with that because he was incredible last year. Yeah. That was not like a Seattle scheme defense last year. That was a split safety, do a lot of different things week to week to try and ensure that we can beat that team with these players that we have. So he was incredible. Like, again, we don't know what DeMeco Ryans is, but I think it's fair not to expect him to be what Robert Saleh was last year.
Like, set your expectations fairly is the word. Fair. Have prudent expectations, guys.
Sorry, it's fair to not expect him to be the top 2 or 3 best defensive coordinator in the NFL.
You're expecting him to be as good as Robert Saleh was in year 4 as a defensive coordinator. Robert Saleh wasn't as good as he was in year 4 when he was year 1. Rookie Robert. There's a whole difference. Anyway,
he evolved so much.
He did.
Year to year. So that's one thing. And then the injuries, obviously, like, here's my take on the injuries. Like, on one hand, I would like to say that the Niners are going to be more lucky, and I think they deserve to be. And I think a lot of players, like, I feel bad for all those players, that put their heart and soul into it, and you go on a turf that you don't particularly like, and it's sticky, and bang, you get one soft tissue injury, and like now you're fighting for your career and stuff like that. I feel terrible. But at the same time, the players that they're relying on, there's about 12 of them that we did that list last time I was on here on a Monday, and it's 12 players that you look at and you go, dang, like, these guys all have massive injury histories. And like, you expect them to like be lucky, but then the history says, like, George Kittle has missed 2 or 3 games the last 3 years or last 2 years, I want to say. And, Nick Bosa has had 2 very serious surgeries in the last 3 years and stuff like that. So that's one thing. And then obviously, what was the other one you said? You said injuries.
The quarterback situation. They don't know who the quarterback is.
Right. It's
ranked ahead of the Seahawks and the Packers.
The Seahawks, the Packers, the Rams, the Colts, a lot of teams that are talented teams and stuff. And I still think it's fair given the quarterback situation, just because when Garoppolo is played, even though Garoppolo is not as good as any of those quarterbacks, the Niners have had as good a team as those teams when he's played. And you would assume by trading up 3 picks, you're upgrading with Trey Lance. I personally think you're upgrading with Trey Lance.
I think
you think you're upgrading with Trey Lance.
I do too.
So, like, from that standpoint, like, okay, like, that works, right? That works. Like, from a standpoint, like, 5 is a good spot for them. Will they be the 5th best team in the NFL 10 months from now? For them, the only question is injury. Like, even the Saleh thing, even if the defense isn't top 5, if they're not as hurt on offense, and if Nick Bosa plays, and if Jaquiski Tartt is healthy, and if Jason Verrett plays the entire season, and K'Wan Williams plays the entire season, even though you might not be as good schematically, like D'Amico is going to have 6 times what Saleh had to work with.
That is really true. Year, so that is really true. You know, I got a funny thing to say before we leave. We got 1,200 people watching right now, which is raw. What was I going to say? I just forgot it because I was so excited that we have 1,200 people watching. Oh, sorry. I had to milk it. The team that might be the most overrated is not the Niners. It might be the Rams. I've been looking at their offseason. Yeah, they got Stafford. That's a nice upgrade. They lost a lot, man.
Yeah.
They lost a lot. Yeah.
Here's my only thing with the Rams and the reason why I'm bullish. Everybody knows how I feel about Matthew Stafford, but that's not why. I'm very high on Cam Akers. I thought he was really special down the end of the season. I think Cam Akers is going to be a top 10 running back in the NFL next year. And I think what separates the Rams more than anything is they have 2 players that can make an entire defensive line look good and an entire secondary look good.
That's true.
And that's where I think the Rams have the advantage.
And they still have good coaches, man. Bringing in Raheem Mostert is nice.
They have great coaching. They have a very good quarterback and a really good system. They have a decent offensive line. They have a good run game. And then your defense, you have, I would say, maybe the 2 best defensive players in the NFL. Would you say that?
They did lose Troy Hill and John Johnson. Shout out to me. They also lost Michael Brockers. They lost
those 2.
Yeah, they lost Michael Brockers. They lost Gerald Everett. They lost those dudes. I don't know about that.
But I agree with you. I actually think across their roster, there's a lot of questions, but they have those 2 guys, Grant, on defense.
They do, and they're great. They're off the charts.
That's where I think a guy like Troy Hill, he was a beneficiary of the fact that they were able to lock Ramsey on one side and, play zone away from him. John Johnson, I actually think, is just a terrific player in general. Yeah. I think he's going to be awesome on the Browns. But I think Troy Hill was a beneficiary. And then they did bring back Leonard Floyd, who was really, really good for them last year, to go with, obviously, the best player maybe in the NFL and Aaron Donald. So
good call. I forgot. They lost Ebukam. I like him too. I think it's interesting where the Rams are going to be, because earlier in the show you said, I'd rather have a team with depth than a team with star power. The Rams are testing that theory. Their star power is Hall of Fame. I mean, that's even underselling it. So Aaron Donald's the greatest. Yeah.
Here's what I'll say about their depth. Because they have such good coaching, it's the same thing with the Niners, right? Like, we didn't know Ross Dwelly was a pretty good player. Bang, they put him in. He's a pretty good player. Like the Rams, we didn't know Troy Hill was going to play that well, and Darius Williams was going to play that well last year. We thought, man, you traded for Jalen Ramsey, you don't have, and a lot of different guys stepped up for them, like Leonard Floyd. Who was he before? I mean, who was the center they got from the Browns? Austin Corbett. He played pretty well for them last year, and he was an absolute failure on the Browns. He was a flop. So their coaching staff also does a really good job of developing players that I feel like they'll have guys step up because we don't know. Maybe I'm a little too bullish on the Rams because of Matthew Stafford, but I don't.
No, you made a good point. You make good points. Absolutely. It's not like
I don't think they have a better roster than the 49ers, but I think they have a couple of premium positions kind of more intact and more locked up, and obviously they're equally well coached.
I think Tyler Higbee's really good too.
I think so too.
Michael Carroll said, agreed, Warner needs to be signed. Who is the one player we can't lose this year? I think you mean in terms of injury. Now, when Nick Bosa went down, it might have been one of our first Mondays with Vish. You said right off the bat, this season's over right now. The season is over. They're going nowhere without Nick Bosa. So is that your answer?
I remember that.
It was over.
That would be my
You're right. Yeah. I was like, no. I was trying to hey guys, let's keep watching my channel. The season's not over. But Vish was like, nah, man, I don't have a channel to promote yet, so I'm just going to say it. You were right. I was scared when you said that.
I would say 100% it's Nick Bosa.
Yeah. Nick Bosa. Okay.
Who would you say?
Okay. My mind went to Kittle. The way this offense is constructed, losing him for 8 games last season hurt a lot. I mean, the blocking, the receiving. Without him on the field, that offense is ordinary, by the way I look at it. But again, Debo has that effect as well. Just the blocking in particular. You take him out, all of a sudden, McGlinchey's exposed. Mostert's not as good. I mean, there's a domino effect. I would think he's really important. Newsflash, he's important.
Yeah, obviously. My thing with Kittle is that I think they've proven that they can play well when it's just Kittle that's out. Like the first Rams game, Debo was healthy and back, and Debo won them that game and all that. But when it's more than Kittle out, obviously you're screwed. So I agree with that. Yeah. I just think the effect Nick Bosa has for the rest of this D-line, whether it's Eric Armstead, I mean, Javon Kinlaw, I think part of the reason he struggled a bit more too. Like, I think the presence of Nick Bosa will help him a lot and all of that. And the other thing with Nick Bosa,
I got more names too. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
This is something we talked about in the phone. And the other reason I want to say we can't lose, that he cannot be lost for this year, is because that would be the third serious injury that he's had in the last 4 years. And
he's one away from being just damaged goods. One away, if not there already. So yeah, he needs to be done with that. Yeah. So I got other names though. Jason Verrett has to play.
Yeah,
Jason Verrett has to play.
That's another one. That would be my second actually.
Yep.
Because I don't think they have a backup for him.
Also, one more, and we're taking this guy for granted, but Trent Williams. Got to play.
Agreed.
Got to.
Jimmy Ward too, I would say.
Oh yeah, no question, man. So that's a good question, Michael.
Especially with the corners they have, Jimmy Ward is essential because he's the best man coverage player on this team.
That's true. Well, Jason Verrett's right there with him, but
they're right there.
Those two. Addie G says, does Jimmy play better under Harbaugh? That's interesting. Harbaugh was good at pumping up quarterbacks' confidence, and I think Jimmy could use some pumping up. That being said, I don't think Harbaugh would want a statue like this.
Statistically, I say no way, because they're not going to give him. They're not going to scheme up stats for him.
There might be fewer turnovers, but there'll be less yards, less touchdowns. Period.
For sure.
Yeah.
Alex Smith the year was 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in 2011.
Right. Yeah.
That was frustrating to watch.
Modest.
The Niners are going 13-3.
Like every time they got to the red zone, it's just like run, kick.
David Akers set the field goal record that year.
Yeah. Yep. Isaac says, hold on. No, that's Isaac. When are you going to run your stinger against my subby? I'm in the bay waiting on you. We trying to doing some real driving, not just highway pulls. This is funny. Never, by the way. But when I was in high school, I had 11 o'clock curfew. What was your curfew in high school?
I never had one.
Never. See, everyone was like you, but I had an 11 o'clock curfew because my mom knew I was trying to get into stuff. So my girlfriend at the time was in Castro Valley. So it was a 15-minute drive home. And I would always leave at like 11:50, cut it close. You know what I mean? So I'd get on the freeway driving faster than I should say. And I was in like 90, like going too fast. 90 on 580. Anyone who drives 580, that's like
90 as like a junior in high school.
Yeah, because I was late, and 580 is like the Autobahn. There's never any cops on that. It's very dangerous. So anyway, I'm going 90 in my little Acura RSX. That was my dad's car, of course, which is it's a nice little zippy car. And then people think I'm trying to race, so they pull up alongside of you, and they're like souped up cars. They're like and they try to go, and I'm like, man, I can't keep up with that. First of all, I'm not racing. Second of all, I lost. But it was funny how many people thought there's like an underground circuit. All you got to do is go like 88 miles an hour or faster, and people pull up alongside of you and try to get some. It's like, man, no.
I'm just trying to get home and beat curfew.
I'm just trying to beat curfew because I know if I'm at 5 minutes late, my mom will give me a look, but it'll be all right. If I'm 15 minutes late, I'm not going out the next night. So I got to get home by 12, 11, 10. Meanwhile, everyone else had like a 1 o'clock curfew. It's like, thanks, Mom. It's okay. I swear, I never drove 90 miles. I've never driven more than 75 miles an hour in my life. That was all fiction. Mom, I promise. I'm so sorry. And I'm a very safe driver. Felix says, hey, Grant, what happened to your 40 time? You still doing that? Dude, my back hurts right now from doing lunges at the gym. I'm trying to get back in shape. I did 0 working out over the pandemic. So, yeah, I'm going to try if I can get that 40 out there. But I'm probably going to pull every muscle and never really run faster than 4.9. We'll see what I got. Thank you. I know I've built that up for so long. I really need to run it. But, dude, I'm old. I pull muscles all the time, dude. You're not there yet. You're 21. You're still in good shape, right? Are you still playing soccer?
No, I haven't been playing as much, but I've been trying to get myself back into shape too because I stopped doing anything over the pandemic.
Are you going to move out to Silicon Valley? Are you going to be like a dude out here working in Silicon Valley at some point? You think?
If I get a job there.
Is that the plan? Is that the hope? The plan?
I mean, yeah.
Right, so if you ever move out here, you got to join my indoor soccer league. Although I am coming to
a 49ers game in San Francisco this year, though.
Sweet, and I'll be in Chicago. I'll be in Chicago too.
The Arizona game.
Oh, nice.
I'm here to watch Kyler.
Damian says, sign Sherman after June 1 for the right money. Oh, God. Not as a starter, but as a mentor, nickelback safety depth. Can they just have him as a coach? How about that? Can him as a coach? A player? Man, he should have to beat me in a race to get back on the Niners, is all I'm saying. Sherm.
You don't want that smoke, Grant. You don't want that smoke.
I want it so bad. That's the kind of like Jim Rome publicity I really need for my career to take off. Damian, I hope you're wrong, man. Do you think they'll do a post June 1 signing of Sherman? Oh.
No. If they wanted to sign Richard Sherman, they would have done it. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, me too, man. I hope that's true. Last one. Is the need for pass rush help being overlooked given Bosa's coming off a serious injury and why not looking at signing guys like Justin Houston? Yeah, why not looking at signing guys like Justin Houston? He never gets less than 8. Yeah. What's up with that? Yeah, what's up with that? Now, maybe Justin Houston's going to be the kind of guy who's like, you know what? I'm going to sign after training camp. Remember, Clowney did that last year. It's never really a good sign when vets try to like weasel out of training camp, but they do it sometimes. Training camp's not fun. It's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, football practice doesn't look like it's fun. I know a lot of my buddies play football. Did not like it.
Looks awful, man. And especially for like the good players, you have to go against the not so good players and they're trying so hard to prove themselves and they're not that coordinated. So they kind of like fall all over you and step on your feet. And it's just like, you get so bruised up by your own team I don't know. I never played football. I played baseball. Anyway, I just criticize people who dedicated their life to it because it's easy to do. Dean says Jimmy and Raheem for Jones. Jimmy and Raheem. We think.
How generous to Dean.
I don't think Atlanta's interested in Jimmy Garoppolo. Just thought.
I don't think they're interested in Raheem Mostert.
I don't think they're interested in either player presented in this offer.
My thing, and I'll elaborate a little bit more on what I said earlier. It's not that Raheem Mostert isn't a good player or anything. It's just when you trade for Julio Jones and you're getting Raheem Mostert back, that's a hard sell. Come on.
Yeah, it is. Don't worry, Falcon fans. We got a backup running back. Salah says, Grant Vish, you guys have touched on that as the rest of the NFC West gets smaller and faster. Shanahan and Lynch draft bullies in the run game, big O-line, big running back, big mobile quarterback, signed D-line. Why is that? It's partially because, to zig while others zag, but I think it's also their response to having so many injured players. Instead of having small, fast guys, maybe they should try for bigger players. I think that's part of it.
I think the other thing is that, like, all these bigger guys, I wouldn't say that it's like they actively. The more I look at it, and actually these are the two players in the draft. These are the three players in the draft I actually have watched. I haven't watched the rest of them, but I don't think they did it because we wanted to. I don't think it was a concerted effort to get big guys. It just so happened. Oh, look, Trey Lance, a big guy, but he knows how to run offense, and he's executed play action from under center before. Oh, Trey Sherman,
it's like, big guy. We really like Mac Jones, and we really like Trey Lance, but Trey's bigger. Yeah, let's go with the bigger one. He's bigger.
No.
End of story.
Right. And then Trey Sherman, he's a huge guy, but he's a perfect fit for outside and inside zone. He has an incredible burst in short area. And then same thing with
Tevin Coleman.
Right, who's fast but doesn't have burst. And then big Aaron Banks, I think the part of the reason with big Aaron Banks is that the broadcast during the draft was very, very misleading. Daniel Jeremiah was like, oh, I don't think he fits, blah, 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 all of that. And then all you got to do is watch Aaron Banks and you realize, oh, crap. He's good at outside zone and inside zone. He can execute both of those things. He does move well enough to do both of those things. So, again, I think it was, like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan talked about it during the draft. It's not like, oh, we want smaller offensive linemen. We want offensive linemen who can move well enough to execute a run blocking scheme. And now they got a big one who does that.
Also, it's the guard isn't always asked to get up to the second level on outside zone. I mean, think about it. If you're a guard and you're going up against a 3 technique, you're not getting up to the second level. You're blocking the 3 technique. And that's the toughest block for anyone on the play. And what he can do is get his helmet outside the dude and turn him, which is all you need to do, because basically outside zone is a series of screens like in basketball. You're just trying to turn people and then you create lanes He can do that. Is he going to be getting downfield and finding DBs? Maybe not, but that's what McGlinchey does. That's what Mac does. This guy is going to be turning 3 techniques. That's good because Brunskill can't do that. I mean, Person couldn't do that. That's really, really, really hard. So he's going to fit. He's going to fit.
Agreed.
Vish, thank you so much for doing the show with me. We got to leave him wanting more. We're running up on an hour, and it's your summer break, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I got to go on Twitch because that's something I do now too. But thank you so much for your time. Hell of a shirt.
Thank you.
Hell of a show.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, my dad called you adorable the other day. Did you catch that? I just want to let you know. He said it in a loving way. He said, Vish, I love Vish. It's a great show. He's so adorable. I was like, Dad. But he says stuff like that about me too, because when you're that age, everyone's a kid. So
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense given our age difference. I would assume that
he's a very big fan of our show. Anyway, thank you all, everyone. I'm going to change and be on Twitch in 10 minutes. See you guys there. Thanks, Vish.